The unprecedented pace of disruption and uncertainty makes leadership more relevant today than ever before. It's not position or power, but your leadership skills that help you to think in unique, creative ways. When faced with a crisis, a leader is forced to think and make critical decisions. A leader who empowers a team and gives the employees accountability increases the effectiveness of an organization. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Warren Bennett says leadership is the capacity to turn vision into reality. And Bill Gates says as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. Today I have the honor of welcoming Margaret Meloni. Margaret Meloni is president of Meloni Coaching Solutions Incorporated, a company devoted to helping you successfully navigate the human side of the project world. Margaret has supported project managers at organizations such as Occidental Petroleum, Northrop Grumman, Toyota Motor Credit, Southern California Edison, CalStart, etc. Her background in IT, project management, and PMO leadership enables Margaret to understand that managing projects can be difficult. Her special emphasis is on soft skills training for project managers. Margaret is contributing author to the book 101 Great Ways to Enhance Your Career, in which she writes about conflict resolution. She has also been invited to contribute to articles in PM Network, the monthly magazine covering trends, tools, and best practices in project management. She is a top blogger at Toolbox. Margaret holds a BS in Business Administration and an MBA from California State University, Long Beach. She is also a certified project management professional, a recipient of the University of California, Los Angeles Distinguished Instructor Award. Margaret is a dynamic speaker who combines inspiration, common sense, and a dash of humor, and works with her audiences to understand the importance of soft skills at work. Welcome to this talk, Margaret.
Oh, thank you very much. It's nice to get to have a chance to spend time with you. I appreciate it.
I'd like to begin by asking you, what do you think are 3 traits that a project manager or a leader should have to thrive in a disruptive economy?
I'd like a leader to have some strong emotional intelligence. I like leaders to be strategic. And I really appreciate somebody who is, not sure if accountable is the right word. I hesitate to use the word accountable because I think that's such an overused word. But I think that somebody who really leads by example and doesn't expect the team to do something that he or she is not willing to do, you know, and really says what they're going to do and does what they say. That kind of responsibility, I think, is very important.
Yeah, 3 interesting points: emotional intelligence, strategy, and leading by example.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Leading in a crisis, we come to that. How do you think a leader should respond in a crisis, and what are some parts of that effective response?
Well, I think the first most important thing is to remember that we are all human, you know, and you are dealing with human beings, and people are nervous and upset and distracted. And by the way, probably so are you as a leader. And I think that, you know, our first responsibility is to make sure our people are okay. I know I've worked with some people who like to pretend that that's not their problem and people should just, you know, be quiet and get to work and, oh, you better hit those deadlines. But I think it's really most important to take care of the people first and then decide how to move forward in the crisis.
That's nice. The human side at work, because there is a balance between work and empathy, like seeing people for what they are. That's a nice point.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that some leaders, you know, lead by fear and intimidation. And I believe that only works as long as people have no other choice. And so I guess when the economy is difficult, and right now this is a challenging time for a lot of people in the economy around the globe, but when the economy gets better, if that's how you are, people are going to leave you as soon as they can leave you.
Yes. Coming to a team, how does a leader keep your team motivated and connected? And how do you support them during such times like a crisis times?
Well, I think the first thing is to let them know that you care about their well-being and that you check on them first. And so before I come to you and say, are you going to make your deadline? That first I stop and I address and ask, how are you doing? And, do you have what you need? Not because I probably can't get you everything you need, right? Because depending on what our situations are, but I want you to know that, first of all, I want to make sure, are you okay? Can you proceed with the work? I'm going to encourage you to focus on the work because it helps take our mind off of the distractions. As long as you're strong and healthy, it's good to be able to have something to focus on. I'm going to encourage you to do that. But first, I want to assess what shape you're in order to be able to move forward. And there are leaders out there who aren't good at that, because a lot of what I'm discussing is empathy, for the empathy part of emotional intelligence. And some leaders just don't have this. Then what I would say is partner with someone who does. So if you are that person who, during difficult times or anytime you have a hard time remembering that you work with human beings, then, send somebody to check on people.
Today, there are so many tools like what we are using now, Zoom, Skype, then you have WhatsApp, you have Slack, and we are moving from a localized face-to-face setting to something virtual. So how do you lead effectively in a virtual workplace?
Don't disappear. And I think we have to work harder for the human touch. It's possible. Face-to-face is probably always going to be the best way to build relationships. But the advantage of what we have now is that, you and I are across the globe. One day you may be in Southern California, maybe not. Maybe one day I'll be back in Singapore, maybe not. But look, we get to meet and talk to each other. So this is the tremendous advantage. So we have these tremendous advantages, but we want to make sure that I don't want to disappear. If you and I were working together, I don't want you to ever wonder, where am I? Is she still around? Does she still care about what I do? I don't want to wonder, where are you? Are you okay? So it's about finding those ways to keep in touch. And it's about finding those. I read this article a couple of weeks ago, and there was this really good comment. And the comment was that the challenge we have with being, all digital like we are now, is that we miss the serendipitous interactions. When I'm walking down the hallway and I see you and I say, oh, wait, I wanted to ask you something. We don't have that now, but we can find ways to create that now, whether it's just when we're inviting people to come onto Zoom, whether it's just we start a little early, before we get into official business, we stay a little bit after official business ends, or we find some activities that we can do, that we open it up and we sit and we have lunch or something together. I mean, right now for me, it would be dinner, and you, it would be breakfast, but that we could do that.
Yeah. So there is still a lot of scope for this, for actually building rapport online. We can just have games and virtual activities and simple chat before and after the session. That's a nice idea. If you look back at your career, what do you think is one of the big challenges that you have faced as a project manager or as a leader?
I think that I've worked in a lot of environments where there were unrealistic expectations on team members in terms of the amount of work they were assigned and the deadlines that they had to face. And, I was just sharing this with a class that I was teaching the other day. One place I worked, I thought of it as like a big hive of bees, bzz, bees, that we would swarm. And we got things done, but it was very inefficient. We would just move from project to project to project. And so a project would sit and get almost no attention until the one before it finished, and then it was the next most important. Then lots of people would be thrown at it. And so we would spend more money and we would burn people out with overtime. And we would hit our deadline and not always sure that quality didn't suffer. So I think it's that. It came back to me, it came down to that realization that it's not fair to expect people to work massive amounts of overtime all of the time. That do less with more phrase.
Yeah.
That's an ugly
phrase. In Agile, they talk about simplicity and like the amount of work not done rather than the work that is done. That means trying to minimize the amount of work that is. Yeah. So that means making it efficient and productive rather than just doing things as.
Yeah, exactly.
Many companies around the world were taken by surprise at the beginning of this year when this COVID-19 pandemic struck.
Yes.
So how do we actually preempt such a risk and factor it into our project management plans? Yeah.
Well, so this comes down, in my mind, this comes down to risk management. And in project risk management, there's two terms. They are proper terms, but I always think they sound odd. Unknown unknowns versus known unknowns. And the challenge with unknown unknowns is it really comes down to our experiences. Now, you and I, we were not alive in 1918 when there was the last pandemic. That begs a whole other discussion about past lives. But as far as we know, we weren't alive in 1918. And so we don't bring with us that knowledge of a pandemic, at least not in my field, And if we worked in, epidemiology and that kind of thing, and we studied SARS, we would maybe have had a better idea. There are certainly people who were not surprised by this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I live in Southern California and we have earthquakes.
Yeah.
It's not if we're going to have an earthquake, it's when.
Mm-hmm.
But think about that. Then what that becomes is if we do our good risk identification and we say, what if we have an earthquake? The probability of it happening, it depends. And the impact is high, but we might give it a low probability because we'll say, well, sure, we might have a 6.5 someday, but maybe not while we're working on this project. So to go back to your question, I think initially some of us, it was not within our information bank, our lessons learned to foresee it. What I do think that where we could have done a better job is, project risk management is not about identify risks at the beginning of the project and then you're done. We identify risks as we go along, right?
Yes.
We all began hearing about the pandemic, different stages. You probably heard about it before I heard about it, or you heard more about it before I did, and maybe in your world, you took your country and your politicians and your culture took it more seriously before mine did. I'm trying not to get into trouble here, right? But so I think that in some instances, it was maybe a failure to recognize that the risk was growing.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it is not just about identifying, but preparing for things when things are fine. Like there is a cyclone in your place. It happens. So why don't we just prepare for things when things are good? Now we are fine. We can think about it, but not when the crisis happens. Like, don't wait for the crisis to happen.
Exactly. And you're right. In certain times of year, there is going to be a cyclone. Right. And there's multiple, you know, when your weather channel tells you about everyone that might be a cyclone, and then out of 5, maybe 1 is a cyclone, right? But I bet, you know, some of your friends and family are ready and have extra food and water and flashlights, and some of your friends don't.
True. Now we come to, what do you see as a future for project managers?
Well, so I have huge bias, you know, as a person who's been in project management for a long time, and now as a person who teaches project managers. I don't think project management is going away. I think that it's continued to be a needed skill. I think we will continue to see more people being pushed to play double roles, you know, that you're the project manager and you're the project engineer. I think that will continue. I think that we will continue to see more people get project management education, even if they're not going to be a project manager. But I think that's a good thing, because I think we'll have more team members who understand project management. And I think that we are learning that we do need to be flexible. And, you know, there was a time, gosh, a long time ago, when companies started working more digitally and virtually. And then I feel like all the companies that were going to do it did it, and everyone else kind of stopped. And now it's back again. Yeah. And some companies will not go back to a lot of in-person because they'll not want to pay for the space. And so I think that a good project manager is going to continue to develop his or her ability to work digitally and to motivate and build those bonds with people all over the world.
Yeah, that's a nice point. Do you have any advice for youngsters, the millennials who wish to take up a career in project management or leadership roles?
Yes, do it. So my short answer is do it, and test it out. You know, test it in one of the good things about project management is you can use it in any industry. So if your interest is in gaming, then find out how to be a good project manager for gaming, because it's going to use, you know, a much more accelerated agile cycle. If your interest is shipbuilding, then find out how to do it in shipbuilding. If your interest is entertainment, then find a way to bring that skill. Find what you're interested in. Get some education. You know, you can start off with a short course. You could start off with a day's worth of training to get an idea for it. And then go practice. And then see where you want more, or if you want more. Volunteer. If you're you know, building your career and you're still getting your education, or the job market isn't where you want it to be, volunteer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But definitely keep going. Definitely. We need you. We need someone.
Thank you so much, Margaret, for offering your insights and experience on all those questions that I've posed to you. Yeah, it was a pleasure listening to you. And I'm sure those...
I enjoyed speaking to you. I appreciate you spending your time and brain space on me. Thank you.
I'm sure that those who listen to this will benefit from it. Thank you so much.
I hope so. Be well. Thanks.
Thank you.